Welcome to this multi-million dollar podcast. I'm Kev Prosper, CEO and founder of Prosperity. You are tuned into Love and Money on Prosperity Plus. Thank you for visiting the website below at prosperunlimited.com. Thank you for liking, subscribing, following, and sharing. And remember to invest in the brand Prosperity U LLC. Live by design. Well, so in the previous part one, I talked about the fatherlessness, the fatherless homes, and how it's making the kids dumber, you know? And in this episode, and you can go watch that video, How to Fix Stupid Part 1. In this episode, I want to discuss the great No Child Left Behind law that George Bush Jr. gets a lot of credit and flack and fault for. However, what we thought that law was about really wasn't what it was about. There were a lot of good intentions around it. And it's surprising to me, per my research. There was a lot of good intentions, and it was good intentions, and it was good intention behind the way it was structured. However, the unintended consequence, that's what they call it. The unintended consequence behind it is what gave it the stigma that it's had for the past 20 plus years. So the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 was a major reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. Okay, so the NCLB was set in place by George Bush Jr. To replace the ESEA on January 8th of 2002. It was signed on January 8th of 2002. So it was created in 2001 and it was signed on in 2002. It represented one of the largest expansions of the federal government's role in K through 12 public education and was built around a straightforward premise. Schools should be held accountable for whether students are actually learning, particularly students who had historically been underserved or overlooked. So the consequence wasn't even unintended. It was an opposite consequence of what was intended. That's the crazy part. And so now we're getting into the politics of the school system. This video is going to be a whole entirely different color from the content on part one. We get into it. We're stepping into a different realm, a different arena with this one. But I think it's good though. I think it's good because it gives it's good to look at every face of it, every face of the problem and figure out better ways to solve it. So this is the No Child Left Behind Act and why it was created. So we're going to talk about why it was created. We're going to talk about the problem that it was designed to solve, and the problem that it created, and then we're going to talk about the paradox that it created, and then we're going to talk about a solution. We're going to talk about a cure, and get down to the bottom of it, and how to fix it. We're going to talk about how to fix it because if you're familiar with Prosperity U LLC, if you're familiar with Love and Money on this podcast, we're all about solutions. We're all about solutions. You know what I mean? So why was the No Child Left Behind created? No Child Left Behind emerged from growing bipartisan concern that American education system was failing to adequately educate large numbers of students. Now, initially, the reason I wanted to address this as one of the topics, one of the topics on how to fix stupid. The reason I wanted to address this because for years, even before I worked in education, I always heard that the No Child Left Behind Act was all about passing students up. It was all about passing students up, right? Just push them on to the next grade, whether they're dumb or not. No matter how stupid they are, just push them on to the next grade. And when I worked in education, I saw this firsthand. Education, when it comes to politics, education doesn't raise the same red flags that poverty and crime does. So when I say like how discouraging and depressing and demoralizing it is to see a kid is too dumb to go to the next grade, get pushed to the next grade, it doesn't come off as serious as a child that's committing a murder. You know what I'm saying? Or a child who goes to bed hungry. You know what I'm saying? And is forced to sell, not forced, but resolves to selling drugs just to make a living, right? That doesn't hit the same. But I think it's all just as severe. It has the same level of severity, but it's like a slow drip. I don't want to preach. One major concern was the soft bigotry of low expectations. So No Child Left Behind was trying to address how oh, we're saying it's okay for the kids to be dumb, so let's be more stringent upon them, right? Policymakers argued that the schools were sometimes practicing social promotion, moving students from grade to grade despite inadequate mastery of reading, mathematics, or other fundamental skills. Basically what I just said. So it was designed to stop the kids from getting passed up. Low-income and minority students were particularly vulnerable to being passed through the system without their academic deficiencies being adequately addressed. Another problem was that school-wide averages could conceal average gaps. A school could report an acceptable overall performance while particular groups and demographics such as low-income students, Black and Hispanic students, students with disabilities, or English language learners were performing substantially worse. No Child Left Behind attempted to make those disparities impossible to hide by requiring performance data to be separated by subgroup. There was also a broader concern about American competitiveness. I think that's a side conversation, because yes, in comparison to the rest of the world, yeah, American kids are getting dumber. American kids are dumber compared to the rest of the world. You know what I'm saying? Them kids grind. Them kids don't play by no books. You feel me? Thus, No Child Left Behind was not originally conceived as an attempt to make education easier. Its underlying philosophy was essentially the opposite: raise expectations, measure outcomes, expose achievement gaps, and hold schools accountable. This sounds all good and well. So let's get into the unintended consequences. This is where the story becomes much more complicated. No Child Left Behind essentially created a high-stakes accountability equation. So now basically it put the school administrations, in a predicament where they basically have to play the numbers game and juke the stats, teaching to the test, as they say, and then just quote-unquote playing the game. And then ultimately, in the process, passing kids up. The very thing that the act was designed to stop, right? The problem was that schools and states were given powerful incentives to make their numbers look better. That is basically what I just explained, juking the stats. One major criticism involved the definition of quote-unquote proficiency. Although No Child Left Behind established the overarching federal accountability framework, states retained considerable authority over their academic standards and assessments. And that's the thing. A lot of school systems are too diverse to be, from going from state to state. There's certain states that follow the same curriculum, you know what I'm saying, across grade levels. But there's a few states that do their own thing, like Florida. I know Florida's one. I think Arkansas maybe. But there's a few states. I know for a fact, I know Florida is one state that has its own school system. It doesn't follow any other school system. And this causes problems legislatively, if that's the word. This causes problems for legislature because an act can get passed, but a state might just, say, okay, cool, great, we're doing our own thing. Cities argued that some states responded to the pressure by making assessments or proficiency thresholds easier rather than producing equivalent improvements in actual student knowledge. And that's why I think instead of state tests, they need to be federal tests, But then again, that's too much on the Department of Education. You know what I'm saying? Like how many students, how many grade level K through 12 students are across the country? You're going to grade all of them students on one standard? You know what I mean? And then, the soccer moms of America are going to protest the fuck out of that. Because they say, oh, our kids are too stupid. Your grading content is too stringent for our kids. And we need to soften them and coddle them. Oh, and yeah, it just gets dumb after a while. In other words, instead of always raising the student standard, the system sometimes created incentives to lower and manipulate the standard. That distinction is central to understanding the controversies surrounding No Child Left Behind. And this is the nightmare. This is the nightmare that can come of this. This is the nightmare that's liable to come of this. So that's the unintended consequence. So No Child Left Behind is best understood as an accountability experiment, not an education philosophy that explicitly sought to lower standards. If you measure student performance, expose disparities, establish high expectations, and impose consequences for failure, the schools will improve. That was the premise, right? The problem was that institutions respond to incentives. When the system makes the test scores the dominant measure of success, schools naturally begin optimizing for test scores, teaching to the test. That can produce genuine learning in some circumstances, but it can also produce teaching to the test, curriculum narrowing, strategic resource allocation, easier proficiency thresholds, and better statistics without proportionate improvements in intellectual development. And I think in this day and age, intellectual development or the measuring of intellectual development is going to become less and less valuable with the advent of AI. I don't know how how a teacher can really teach when the AI can teach these kids. You know what I mean? When you live in a day and age where you can Google your way into a college degree. You know what I mean? I don't know how a teacher can really bank on their craft and departing their talent and their craft and their gift and vocation into a child, when a child all they have to do is talk to a device, and then the device will break everything down for them. You know what I mean? How does that teacher not feel like a proctor and not a teacher in this day and age? You know what I mean? So it's weird. It's weird. No Child Left Behind should probably not be framed as a cause of declining intelligence or educational performance. It is more defensively framed as one component of a larger system in which an attempt to fix educational failure may have created incentives that distorted what schools optimize for. No Child Left Behind did not primarily cause deficient students to be passed to the next grade. In fact, one of its stated goals was to identify the students who were behind and force schools to address the deficiencies rather than hide them. However, No Child Left Behind also did not create a nationwide rule requiring schools to hold deficient students back. See, this is the argument. This is the key of the argument. Because they wanted to hold schools accountable. They wanted to hold schools accountable. And say that, okay, we want to address the dumb kids, right? We want to address the dumb kids, but at the same time, they never said, oh well, you can't leave kids back. You can't leave kids back. So you put more value on the test scores. Now the schools are teaching to the test, are juking the stats, juking the numbers, and passing the kids up. You know what I mean? And then because you didn't make and I've seen, when I worked in education, I saw kids get left back too. You know what I'm saying? I've seen that too. So yeah, but those were like far few in between. When I was coming up as a child myself, as a grade school student myself, there weren't a lot of kids getting left back. But if it called for it, you kind of knew you were getting left back. You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming down the pipeline, and you know that new school year come around, and you the biggest kid in that class. And all your friends walking in the hallway, looking in the classroom, seeing you, they wondering like, why are you in that class and not in the same class that they in? And then they start putting two and two together and start making fun of you. It gets bad. And there's too many dumb students to be leaving kids back at this point. It's gotten that bad at this point. There's too many dumb kids to be leaving kids back. You know what I mean? Because if you leave one kid back for flunking, you know what I'm saying, you got to leave back like a good 10, 20 in that same grade level. And then that's 10, 20 kids you got to leave back for each grade level. Your population would crowd, the schools would get crowded. It would get way too crowded. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. You just, like, a principal has to have like a certain number of kids in each grade. That's why they kind of play the numbers game with attendance also. The attendance game is a big game in education. Like, you would think, okay, you know, if a parent don't want to go to jail, send their kid to school, right? But you know, you see kids' names on your roster that you've never seen before in your life. Like what? You know what I'm saying? And you wondering, on the ground level, you know what I'm saying, on the boots on the ground level, you know, you wondering what the hell is going on. But the administrators trying to play that numbers game so they can get the government funding and so on and so forth. It's over. It's out of your pay grade. It's over your echelon. You know what I'm saying? My God! It's a bigger game that they're playing. You know. So the cure. Let's talk about the cure. If the question is not simply what can replace No Child Left Behind, but rather how do we fix the educational problems that No Child Left Behind exposed or potentially exacerbated, then the answer goes beyond the ESEA. The first principle should be, do not lower the academic bar. The solution to students performing poorly should not be to make the definition of proficiency easier. Instead, schools should identify exactly what a student does and does not know and provide targeted remediation. We see when you have so many students and such minimal staffing, that's where the AI should come in. That's for remedial students. There needs to be. Here we go. This is my utopia, my education utopia. Let's go. Here we go. So they need to get rid of grades. No more grades. There needs to be just one big student body, right? One big student body. And then every child learns at their age. Instead of grades, they need to have age levels. So every child learns a particular whatever the subject is, they're learning at their age level. So you can go into a classroom, a child can walk into a classroom, and all the kids in that class are the same age as them, right? Let's say you're 15, right? You walk into a classroom, your friend is 15. Every student in that class is 15. However, let's say it's a math class, right? It's a math class. All those kids are at the same age. However, this kid is working on. He may be at a 6th grade math level. This kid may be working at or he may be working at an 11-year-old math level. Another kid may be working at a 12-year-old math level, and so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? Another kid may be working at a 16-year-old math level. With doing away with grades and then just calling them age groups, it's going to revolutionize the game. Because now that child, he's being tended to academically. Yes, you may not. There may be just one teacher in that room and 30 kids, right? Okay, cool, right? But that child is learning at their grade level. They're learning at their grade level, and then they're catching up, and then they're playing catch up. You know what I mean? The only reason the schools would be hesitant to do this is because, once again, teaching to the test, right? The administrators are going to think, okay, well, yeah, that child is learning. He's learning, and he's learning at his level. You know what I'm saying? But is he learning enough to score higher, to score at proficiency on the test? And that's when the administrators are going to be like, hell no. Oh, hell no. And as great of an idea as it sounds, once it hits that political red tape, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly. And I think the whole grade level system that we've been so beholden to for the past 100 or some odd years and some change, right? That whole system, for us to revolutionize it and change it from grade levels to age levels, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if the present day administration and bureaucracy is ready for that. I don't know. I don't really think they're ready for that, honestly. I don't think they're ready for that. Remediation instead of simply retention or promotion. That's basically what it needs to be. You just need you can stay in this age group, but you need to learn on your level. If you in the 10th grade, if you 15 and you reading at a 3rd grade level, you need to be learning 3rd grade language arts or ELA. Period. Like point blank period. And yeah, you can be in class with other 15-year-olds, but you need to be learning at that level. You know what I'm saying? And I think the classrooms are, once you start breaking up the grade levels and making it age levels, and every student learning at their level, and like this is the school of the future. These are the schools of the future. Like I said, the teachers of the future are going to become proctors, and children are going to be learning via kiosks. They're going to come into class, put on their headphones, and the AIs are going to guide them into what they need to be learning at their level. And there's going to be a whole data set. There's going to be a whole data sheet or data analysis, a data dossier on the students' learning functions and how well the student performs. And then the AI will ask them to read out loud, and then they're going to speak into a microphone, and then break down their reading comprehension and all that. Like there's going to be no more teaching. It's just going to be pure kiosks in the classrooms. You heard it first. You heard it first. So it won't be a matter of just, like I said, retention and promotion. It'll be a matter of remediation. So when those state tests come around, you know what I mean? Yes, that if that 15-year-old is reading at a 3rd grade level, if they can is reading at a if that 15-year-old is reading at a 3rd grade level, if you could get that 15-year-old to read at a 4th grade level, that will pay dividends on the state test. You know what I'm saying? That child is learning. They're still learning, nonetheless. You know what I mean? And that should count for something. You know what I mean? Because I always believe in teaching people where they at. So yes. That is the cure for No Child Left Behind. Getting rid of grade levels and replacing it with age levels, and proctoring students into remediation and having a classroom of students the same age, however, learning at whatever level they're on. And that will change the game, and American students will no longer be dumb. I said it first, I said it here, there you go. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for tuning into this multi multi-million-dollar podcast. I'm Kev Prosper, founder and CEO of Prosperity. You are tuned into Love and Money on Prosperity Plus. Thank you for visiting the website below at prosperunlimited.com. Thank you for liking, subscribing, following, and sharing. And remember to invest in the brand Prosperity ULLC. Live by design.